the one-to-one connection I have with people. I think that's the most beautiful moment I have within my hours of work. I don't even call it work because I enjoy it so much. The symptom matrix says back pain, the structural data says mild degeneration, but the real driver is the unseen system failure. The body can compensate for such a long time that the body will build resilience that your body won't even know. Your blood tests show normal, but your body's saying, I'm okay. But this is when kinesiology can dive deep in some of the systems that are drained. The body will never lie. It's like a lie detector test. It will always say the truth. Your body's essentially the computer. And so the practitioner will be able to dive deep into those deep conscious injuries.
You're listening to the Transformed with Data podcast with Graham Crawford, CEO of Crawford Macmillan. Graham is here to share something he's genuinely passionate about. He's going to show you how data can completely change the outcome for both people and businesses. In each episode, he sits down with real people who've done incredible things with data. But don't worry, these aren't your typical dry case studies. Graham and his guests bring you stories about leaders and innovators who saw something in their data that sparked a brand new reality. These are changes that tore through entire industries, upended company cultures, and sometimes even changed lives. So whether you're a data enthusiast or just curious about how to find the truth in your data, join Graham as he discovers how data becomes more than just numbers. It becomes the spark that ignites real, meaningful change. Let's get started. Thanks for listening.
We track steps, sleep, and lab panels, yet we often ignore the clearest data source we have, the body's own signals. And most brain protocols focus on the loudest symptom and overlook all the systems that might be driving it. Dr. Marquise Rivera, known as Chiro with Marquise, reads what she calls the bioenergetic language of the body, blending applied kinesiology, functional medicine, muscle testing, nutrition, and trauma release. Dr. Marquise's bar is measurable change, not just vibes, and with a 90% success rate, and a promise that patients will feel a shift within the first 15 minutes. Confirmed by improvements in range of motion, strength, breath, and a calmer nervous system. In this episode, you're going to learn how to treat your body like a live data system, how to separate real signals from placebo signals, how to tell whether pain is structural, nutritional, or emotional, and how small daily inputs cut the cost per pain-free day. If your health metrics say normal, but your lived experience says otherwise, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Here's Dr. Marquise Rivera. So great to have you, Dr. Marquise.
Thank you so much, Graham. It's truly an honor to be here.
It is great to have you. Before I dive into questions, I just love to explore a bit of background. What led you to become Chiro with Marquise? Like, what is there an event that led you down this path? Did you always want to be this from a little girl? Like, what brought you here?
Definitely. I love that question because we all try to find our moment of shine, right? And so I believe my strengths is really listening. It's really being present with people. I was present with my family. I'm always present with my family. And so I noticed as a young girl, I always wanted to be in a health wellness facility, whether that was a psychologist, a nurse. So I was trying to find myself until family actually came and exposed me to chiropractic. And I did not know what that was at all then. But I went to go search it out myself, worked for an office for 6 to 7 months as a chiropractic assistant. And in those moments, I saw a lot of shifts in people's bodies. Like stroke victims couldn't use their side of their body, half their body. And then after chiropractic treatments, nutritional awareness, they were a whole different person. And then now diving deeper into how many years of experience I have, it's even more deeper. You can do prenatal care, you can do concussion care, you can do nutritional wellness. It's a lot you can do within the chiropractic profession.
I love it. And what's your favorite part of your job?
Truly is the one-to-one connection I have with people. I think that's the most beautiful moment I have within my hours of work. I don't even call it work because I enjoy it so much. It's really getting to know their person at a deeper level because you have, like you said, you mentioned 15 minutes that I can just dive deep in what their issues are.
That's amazing. Such an amazing skill to have. And, don't we all wish and long for something, a job that doesn't feel like work? Very glad for you found that. And obviously a great deal for your patients as well, who get the honor of experiencing that with you. Can we start by talking about some examples? We talked about how the signal on the surface isn't always, the true cause. um, of what they're seeing. So, what are some surprising pieces of data that you pick up from patients' bodies, even though the signals are pointing in a completely different direction, or even their medical records or their lab tests are pointing in a different direction?
Honestly, the most surprising thing is how often the medical records contradict some of the body's response. So, for example, traditional records are location based: back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. But kinesiology reveals causation chains. What has been throughout the time of you working at a desk or doing a sport activity, what has caused some of these inhibition patterns. And sometimes that back pain is rooted in a nutrient deficiency. This is when kinesiology can shine. For example, someone who has a chronic low back pain can have relatively clean imaging and normal labs, yet muscle testing shows a nutrition deficiency like magnesium or B12, which are two nutrients very important for muscular strength and stability.
Because you think, right, lower back pain, oh, maybe I slept funny, or maybe I picked something up and didn't use my legs, right? And I think to me or the average person out there, that might you'd if someone came with lower back pain, you'd be like, well, it's probably one of those two things, right? But that's not the case.
Correct, correct. In other words, the symptom matrix says back pain, the structural data says mild degeneration, but the real driver is the unseen system failure. The body can compensate for such a long time that the body will build resilience that your body won't even know. Your blood tests show normal, but your body's saying, I'm okay. But this is when kinesiology can dive deep in some of the systems that are drained, like the adrenal glands. If you're doing a lot of coffee, if you're doing not sleeping well, not getting your 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep, your body will communicate that
Yeah, one way or another, right? And
one way or
I've
another.
heard it, if you're tired and you run yourself down, even those with extreme mental strength, right? The sooner or later, your body will say stop.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, the voice of experience speaking here for sure. You mentioned kinesiology a few times. Like, I'm a bit fuzzy on the definition of that. Like, can you help me out with exactly what it means?
Kinesiology, yes. So kinesiology it's a type of analysis which George Goodhart came out to be around the 1900s. He developed it, and basically what he found was that through muscle testing, you can have a feedback system within the body. The body will never lie. It's like a lie detector test. It will always say the truth. Your body's essentially the computer. And so the practitioner will be able to dive deep into those deep conscious injuries through muscle testing. Now, it is an art. Not everyone can do it. So you've got to find, the right practitioner, the one that can really muscle test your body to see what your body's communicating back.
Is that the kind of pulling of the legs and the seeing where things are sitting? Again, the voice of experience here.
Correct. So they can muscle test a leg, they can muscle test an arm, but a lot of applied kinesiologists go into the structural component too. They can test every muscle in your body. And of course, every muscle is attached to a bone. So it's going to communicate where your deficiencies are.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. People are very quick to understand, sometimes quick at least to understand the link between mind and body, right? Mental health and physical health. So how often do you come across folks who are showing physical symptoms, but it can turn out to be, mental health symptoms that can be the main, alongside the other things, that can be one of the main drivers, right? Do you see that often?
In my practice, in my opinion, I don't like to dive too deep into that realm. I really focus on more of like what issues like range of motion deficiencies has caused their mental brain to be in stress mode, right? It can be a compensation pattern. But to answer your question, absolutely. There's a lot of ways that kinesiology can dive deep into the emotional component. And there is a section in kinesiology called neuroemotional technique, which I do not practice. But there's many great practitioners out there that really dive deep into that. And it really helps the body kind of react well and, more importantly, take care of these compensation patterns, because it's like you said, our mind is such a beautiful thing, and it can really elevate a lot of stress response, emotional and instability when your body's in aberrant mode. And so kinesiology outshines a lot of these practitioners who really don't touch base into those areas within our life. And when it comes to us as humans, we are an emotional entity, we are a chemical entity, and we are a structural entity. So it definitely compensates both, all three, really.
The body and mind are symbiotic, right? So I think it follows that, healthy body, healthy mind, and unwell body, unwell mind. It's up to you which way the spiral goes, right? And the best chance you've got, if the spiral's going downwards, the best chance you've got of sending the spiral upwards instead, are to work on both of those things. And maybe that freedom to move more easily, to feel more comfortable in your body, is just what you need to kickstart the process of improved mental health. So the 15-minute shift that
Yeah.
you see in people when they come in, what does that look like to you? What does that feel like to them?
Yes, great question. So when I talk about a 15-minute shift, I mean that we can focus on real time data. So when a patient comes into my office, I focus on shallow breathing, cranial distortions. I also look at range of motion, right, to see whether their head bends more than one side compared to the other. I'm also looking at the postural corrections that people tend to have. If we're sitting on a desk or if they're doing sports. I'm taking a look at all this, and this is all measurable within minutes. I'm also looking at micro recovery indicators, things like heart rate variability, blood pressure, oxygen saturation. This is all things that can really tell and measure how the body's acting right here, right now. And this tells me that healing is happening here, not weeks later, right? These are great ways to kind of get more confidence in myself that, okay, these stress levels are high at the moment, their hydration levels are low at the moment. And so I can see how I can better maneuver within those 15 minutes. And more importantly, is that you leave the session knowing something has changed. So, for example, if we have uh, a strong muscle that tends to be weak, or vice versa, and that changes after those 15 minutes, that builds something, it gives me confidence and gives the patient confidence that there has been a shift within those 15 minutes. And then your treatment builds off that.
And that shift is something that then, in order to maintain it or keep the momentum that you've generated, like, they might get homework to do, right? Or
100%. Yes.
specific stuff to do while they're not with you. So that, maybe we move down the list to the next most pressing issue the next time the next time that we're in.
100%. And more importantly is the confidence calibration. When people leave those 15 minutes knowing that they can heal on their own, it builds confidence. And more importantly, that tells me whether they can heal the next visit, and the following visit, right? So it's very important how well they know that their body's able to do what it needs to do.
You must, I mean, in my work, I see patterns in data all the time, and you must, across all the many patients you see, observe patterns in them. And as we just talked about, a lot of the work happens outside. You provide some guidance, you reset the board, if you like. Can you
100%.
tell the difference between someone who's going to start to feel better quickly, or someone for whom it's going to take a long time? Can you see?
Yes, yes. So what I notice is crystal clear data. High healers consistently do the work, right? And they do 80% of their movement and nutrition and stress recommendations. Those who plateau, they're hovering around 40%. And I also noticed a thing called data integration willingness. Patients who track their pain, their sleep, their mood, their energy levels, they progress much faster than those who focus on only their pain and their symptom. Holistic awareness fuels holistic healing. Exactly. So, see, you've got a watch there that can really tell you your sleep patterns.
Yeah, yeah. I've got the HRV and the heart rate, everything, every
Come
day.
on. HRV is truly the way to tell how your heart is functioning, right? And heart is really one of the important organs in our body, how your blood flows and everything. And the most powerful predictor, I believe so, is your personal responsibility. When patients start saying, I feel better because I did, I feel better because I drank more water, I feel better because I slept better, I feel better because I did yoga, rather than I feel better because of your visit. That tells me what you did, that shift is healing and it's very sustainable.
Yeah, yeah. And the confidence begets confidence, right? And people continue the path because they see the results, and the behavior is reinforced. If only everyone could spend their entire day with you all the time,
That's not the goal.
you,
That's not the goal.
and you can make sure they're doing well. You mentioned HRV. It's always been a bit of a, and I track it on the Whoop. For those on the audio, I was pointing at my Whoop band that I wear, and HRV is one of the metrics that it tracks there. Like the way Whoop positions it is that's how ready you are to do a hard workout, right? So I see after a hard workout, my HRV drops the next day, and then over the day after, if I rest, or even the day after, if I give myself the real luxury of 2 rest days, then I see it track even higher. But that's how Whoop positions it. They kind of caveat it a little bit and say, this is different for everyone. You can't go and compare with your friend next door about what their HRV is compared to you, because it's a relative number rather than an absolute one. Like, what are your views on HRV, and how do you use it, and what do you use it for?
Heart rate variability really dictates how well your heart is functioning, how well blood is pumping within and out of the aorta, of the descending valves. How well is it moving down your legs up to the upper extremity? It really dictates how the process of the oxygenation rate within your body is working as well. So it's a great variable to see how well your health is, truly how your heart is. And I've noticed that people who are active, walking, doing exercises a week, they have a very great, very good heart rate variability compared to those who don't.
VO2 max is the other one that
Yes,
we sometimes track, but that's more focused on the aerobic function of the heart rather than the heart in general. Is that right?
correct.
As someone who's been on your table and been pulled around by you, manipulated by, what's the right way to? I don't know. I'm trying to find a nice word. Who's been kinesiologied by you? How do you tell the difference between someone just a natural reaction to being pulled versus a real signal that there's something underlying going on?
Amazing question. Because muscle testing and kinesiologists get a lot of skepticism because of this. My approach is that consistency is key. I test the same connection under different conditions. People who are in high hydration states or different times of the day, after stressors, you can
Mm.
see that patterns tend to hold. Real signals tend to be reproducible. Placebo effects tend to be inconsistent.
Oh, I see.
I also use cross validation. If I suspect a nutrient or a muscle compensation pattern, I check relative functional complaints and history. If they both align, the signal will be stronger. And then sometimes I do blind testing to kind of get rid of the expectation bias, right?
Well, you close your eyes.
I don't close my eyes. Kinesiology is very deep. We can get into the meridian patterns. We can get into some of the entry points within your body, stress points. And so without the patient knowing, I can reduce the expectation bias within that. So if the muscle still responds the same way, it increases my confidence. But like I said earlier, muscle testing is an art. It's a disciplined protocol that you can reliably distinguish real changes versus expectation-based ones.
Right. Yeah. And I'm trying to summon an image of it for people who haven't experienced it before. So, and my experience of it is leg gets bent halfway, and Dr. Marquise says, "Okay, push against me, or push towards me, or whatever it might be." And what my experience of what you're doing is you're looking for the combination of direction and or rotation, where the resistance is not there, or the strength isn't there, or something is failing, right?
Correct. Correct. Your body will always compensate. It's very smart. It's built in a very intriguing way that the practitioner will tell a difference between a muscle test that's straight or a muscle test that's turned and then test it again. So there's different minute changes that we can do in order to make sure we're staying on the same track.
I was thinking about that in the context of a golf swing. Like you swing the club towards the ball, and the club head's moving at approaching 100 miles an hour. Yeah, even like subconsciously, you're making these minute adjustments all the way, like as the club approaches the ball. That's the compensating in my head. So if you swing out too far, like your body will move in, you'll twist, you'll rotate your hips slightly, and that will all happen completely subconsciously. Um,
It's
I
an
guess
upstring of.
a golf swing is less dangerous than sitting in a chair the wrong way all day for 8 hours, right? For example, if we're muscle compensating and sitting wonky like this in a chair all day, then that would be worse. So as someone who does um, sports as a hobby and sits in a chair for a job, um, which of those two things is more likely to result in me being injured?
Great
Like, do you see
question. Yours
more
truly, I can say
do you see more athletes or office workers?
I see a combination of both. I do see a combination of both. I do see young athletes that tend to get overuse compensation patterns within their swing. For example, a baseball center field thrower, right? Or a
They're repeating the same movement many times over, right?
That's right. That's right. And what they're not doing is either stretching or strengthening some of the muscles that are small that could be improving their swing or improving their throw. For example, a backhand and on a tennis player, you know, what compensation patterns are happening when they're doing that. And even basketball players, when they shift from side to side,
Yeah, there's a
with
lot of this going
that,
on.
the
Yeah.
pivoting aspects of things. So we tend to look at that. But someone who's sitting in a desk for 8 hours sometimes is even worse because you're becoming atrophied. You're becoming, rounded shoulders. You're tightening your flexor muscles, and it's a lot of compensation we see on a desk sitter too. So truly, I can say both are dangerous.
Notice me shifting my posture immediately hearing you say that. The for the chair sitters out there, like there's people talk about the importance of a good chair. Really, no affiliation or sponsorship, but like this feels good. And I spend a lot of time sitting here, so I do it. Is there a balance between if someone is a chair sitter, a professional chair sitter like me, how much is the chair a factor? Like, is someone with bad habits in a good chair still going to end up injured? I assume, but what is the opposite? Someone with good habits but a bad chair, like which of those is the worst combination?
I think more importantly, structure is primary. So if you feel better alignment with a better chair, like you want that the one you're sitting on, it's great. Now, I also tell people you don't need an expensive equipment. Sometimes you just need postural awareness. So I even sometimes get like a blanket and roll it up and just put it in my mid back. So it gives me a reminder to kind of bring my shoulders back, right? But I also think that investing in these type of equipment patterns definitely will shift some of the stress your body tends to have on for hours in a day. It definitely has its benefit for sure. It definitely has its benefit. But is it the 100% all be all that you need the chair? Absolutely not. You just need awareness of how your body's sitting. Is it the amount of time? The amount of time you're sitting? Maybe you need to be standing every 15 minutes rather than every 3 hours. So it's all dependent to the person.
Yeah, maybe you just need to work on your core strength a little bit. Because that's the classic compensation, right? If someone has weak core strength, then of course they're going to be collapsing all around the chair rather than supporting the sort of heavy trunk of their body.
That's right.
This question kind of implies you're a bit of a magician. I know you are a bit of a magician, but is there a metric that might give you a clue to the cause of someone's chronic pain, whether it's structural, nutritional, or emotional, like before you even put your hands on them?
Great, great. I like that question. So I start with pattern recognition. I track when systems flare in relation to life events, diet shifts, or stress. Structural pain has consistent triggers. Emotional pain doesn't follow the same logic. So, for example, things like bending, lifting, those are all structural pain. Nutritional deficiencies often have a less predictable onset and they modulate with diet change and supplements, right? But emotional based pain often comes and goes when stress comes and goes, right? And there's another thing we call response hierarchy, which is I test with which intervention, movement, nutrition, stress, which one is giving me the most immediate effect. So if movement relieves the most, structure is primary. If nutrient works best, then nutrition may be the dominant. If stress reduction gives the biggest shift, then the emotional system may be the driver. That's when you can really tell. And with kinesiology, you can really dive deep into this world. And then, of course, compensation patterns. Structural issues often produce predictable compensations. And then the emotional ones kind of give a little bit of chaos. So, the data always tells on itself.
Yeah, it can be, the person's kind of a little all over the place. And it blows my mind hearing about this. And, this isn't my experience with you, but with other chiropractors, I think people form the opinion that you just go in, they do the crack, 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 and then kind of move you along. But it feels to me like there's a real difference in what you practice and how you think about and approach this in terms of supporting your patients' holistic health. Why don't other chiropractors do more of that? Is it a time constraint, running a business thing, or is it that they don't necessarily have the holistic skills that you've got in terms of the kinesiology and the nutrition and the supplementing and all the other wonderful things that you know about? Like, are you just able to approach it from more angles?
I think a lot of chiropractors do practice the way I do, but a lot of it is coming from a business aspect, and a lot of it comes from heart, Graham. I think I put a lot of heart in what I do. So I put these together, and it gives me a working hypothesis of how to better serve the person in front of me. And so I think there's many great chiropractors out there who practice similarly, if not better. But I know for sure when your heart's in it, you can really tell that the patient is respecting you, is following your expertise, is really, really monumentally, it's changing their life. And so I think that's what's key for me, is that I can really see a shift in this person's body, more importantly in them, but also in their environment, their family, their work style, right? Their close relatives. You see a shift completely when you really are helping someone in a mental, nutritional, and structural way.
Yeah, harder and deeper work and bigger and more wonderful rewards, right? On the other side of it, and always so much going on. Like, you're analyzing across all these different planes of data just from the person as soon as they walk in the room, and building that rapport that makes you even more effective at doing that over time, right? With the repeat visits. Reminds me a little bit of so I used to do photography amongst many other previous pursuits that I used to do. And I'd find that if I was doing a portrait session with someone, be it a bride and groom or whoever else, um, almost always, say it was a 1 hour session, almost always the best photographs came in the last 10 minutes. And it's not because I worked out how to use a camera in the last 10 minutes of the session or remembered my skills. Like, those were always there. It was the creation of that connection. It was building the comfort and the vibe, if you like, between the two of them. And by the way, that's one of the reasons that wedding photographers often like heavily discount or throw in the engagement shoot or a pre-wedding shoot. That serves a very important purpose for the photographer to build that rapport and build that relationship before the wedding day, so that when we show up on at the bride's house in the morning and there's people running everywhere, um, and the mother of the bride's in a panic and some flowers have gone missing or whatever it might be, that rapport is already established and you don't have to start establishing it at that point in time. And it sounds like a comparison and a similarity across two very different professions there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. What about chronic pain, as I understand it, is when a patient comes in and says, "This hurts exactly here." What do you do when and maybe this points to different types of pain, but what do you do when the patient comes in and they just don't know? They're like, "I just don't feel great. I think my back in general is just painful, or the way sitting doesn't feel right, or whatever else." Like, you're getting less data to start from. So how do you approach that differently?
It's all about the subtle data. I measure how patients allocate their energy, whether that's mental or physical. When someone's aligned, their energy distribution is very intentional. I also look at decision confidence. Someone who says I don't feel like myself often means you're a little, you're unsure. When you feel like yourself, that tells me you're decisive again. You know how to make those choices that make you feel better. And I also use a stress recovery capacity, which I tend to see how fast you bounce back from a stressful response or event. So if you recover quicker, this shows that your nervous system is normalizing.
What's an example of a stressful event in that context?
For example, in chiropractic, of course, like you said, people have back pain, right? They have gone maybe to Chicago to do a workshop or a seminar and things like that, and they were stressed that they had so much things to do and they were sitting all day when we're doing that workshop. They come back to me, their stress levels are high, their back hurts. But it's like the chicken or the egg, what came first, right? So that's when you really can tell how quick their stress recovery is, because when they came back, did they do their mobility? Were they able to take their supplements? Did they move correctly? So therefore, when they come see me, all I have to do is just do a little bit of alignment and correct, postural correct, if you will. Because that's what chiropractic is all about, is really to help stimulate some of these receptors within your body to help build resilience over time.
I wouldn't have naturally thought as like, oh, traveling to somewhere else in the country to do a workshop is a stressful event, but it can be in many ways, not just the pretzeling yourself on an aircraft to get there, but okay, I guess you're in a different bed in the hotel room, and whatever the occasion you're going for, if it's an event or a conference or you're presenting or you're training people, whatever it might be, is also stressful. So these things stack up, but because maybe the individual just sees them as like, this is what's expected of me, they don't necessarily transmute that and think, oh, this is a stressful event. People may be under more stress than they realize, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you work alongside other doctors. Like you recognize and see firsthand the impact of the treatment you do. But like this is something in terms of the adjustments in the kinesiology that you can't do to yourself. Like here I am like, oh, push harder. Like, oh, everything's strong. So do you like hang out before or after work and like kinesiology each other? Like is that something you do? I mean, it's good for the practice as well, I
Of
guess.
course, I will say I love getting adjusted by my colleagues. I think chiropractic is one of the many professions that really, like I said before, is like really sees your body here now. Doesn't look at past, doesn't look at tomorrow. It looks at here and now. And I think it's a great way to get your body released. And the irony is when I'm adjusting all my patients, at the end of the day, I do need a little bit tender loving care for my own back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're on your feet all day and
Exactly.
applying pressure and pushing and pulling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, absolutely. Yes.
No, I love it. And you've seen people over an extended period of time. So what like in terms of approach that people can bring to the table, like or mindset, like what mindsets have you seen that are tally towards long-term improved or continued good health? And what mindsets have you seen that suggest that in the longer term, and it may not be this back issue or that shoulder issue or whatever else it might be, but in the longer term, you see patients' health decline. Like what's the difference in mindset between two people who on those two different paths?
Yeah. So definitely the strongest motivator and predictor for me is the internal drive you have towards life. So in other words, if you're doing this because you feel better, because I told you to, right? Patients who shift into self-responsibility tend to maintain gains 5 times longer.
Wow, 5 times longer. That's something
Absolutely.
else.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about how you are treating yourself behind closed doors. What are you listening to? What are you eating? What are your environments? What are you exposing yourself to? This is all something that will shift your body in so many ways. And another thing is also a self-assessment accuracy. Can you independently assess your own body needs, what it wants, right? If yes, you maintain improvements. If no, you'll revert. So there's a difference between those who kind of stall and those who actually improve without even seeing me or any chiropractor or any other therapist. It's really about how fast your body can really kind of tune in to some of those details that your body is really yelling for, right?
And you mentioned a skill that you have that led you down this path of being present. And from that answer, it sounds like being present in your own body is something, again, which is a great indicator and a great attribute, which leads towards long-term health. People are worried about society nowadays, and I think there's perhaps a general impression that people are less good at being present. In your years of practicing, have you seen societal shifts or cultural shifts that suggest that's the case? Have you seen that reflected in your patients?
Oh, how bad things are getting, you say, or?
in terms of people's ability to be in the present. You know, and people hide away on social media. People numb their emotional pain in a variety of different ways. Like, is that getting worse, or am I just getting more aware of it?
No, and you're absolutely correct. It is getting worse, right? And so this is when we have to build even more of resilience within ourselves to tune into our inner, I call it inner child, because when you tune into that, that's going to really help you define the world and what is not healthy for you, what is healthy. What are you reaching for that your body is really asking more of, right? So it's it's this constant dopamine stimulus as well that we're constantly filled with, right? Social media and a lot of these network shows and movies that are seeing all this novelty and things. But
Cheap high sugar food. There's all the dopamine sources everywhere.
and I believe it takes a strong mind to really kind of step foot and be like, this isn't right for me. I shouldn't do this, right? And so improvements are definitely seen. I think our over time, internet is improving and is getting pretty consistent with to help us. In other words, right? Like ChatGPT, you can ask all these things now, and now you're getting a lot of answers back. But it's really those small shifts that you tune into yourself and being present with peace of mind and silence rather than the chaos that's around the world that can really help start impacting system integrity rather than just putting a band-aid over something.
Yeah. There's always something to do. There's always a distraction available, or we never have to look that far. Still on the subject of phones, they've been around. Like, I didn't have a phone when I was a child. Like, I'm sufficiently advanced in years that wasn't a thing that I had to contend with. And frankly, I don't know how 13-year-old me would have done with a free source of dopamine available in my pocket at all times. Probably very badly. But we've got a generation of kind of young adults now who have had a phone for however many years through their teenage years, through the years when their body was forming. Like, have you either in your own view, or the patients you've seen, as well as, like, what you've heard across the profession and the other folks that you practice with? We talked about repeated strain. Like, have you seen more people come in with I always tell my sons off for doing this, sitting like this with their neck arched forward on their phone, right? I can imagine that has a long-term effect, like holding the phone like this, like with your pinky behind it, locking in. Like, I imagine that might have a long-term effect, like swiping left on Tinder or 1,500 times in a day, like that might have a long-term effect. Like, have you started to see proliferation of mobile phones show up in the form of long-term injuries that people have got, and maybe people at an age younger than they should have those strain injuries?
Yes. As a matter of fact, today I had a patient who he's got a lot of neuritis on one side of his neck, and you don't know where it's coming from, type thing. And so then I went downstairs, just to grab something out of my car, and he was in his car looking at his phone.
Oh, like that.
So, it's like, of course, you're going to have some strain into those musculature areas if you're straining or looking down your phone like that. And it was just astonishing. I was like, I just adjust you and you went to your car and you're doing this type of habit. So some people don't even notice that.
Did you run over
I
and like
did,
bang on the
I
window?
did
Oh,
it much sooner than others. But that's the point. You want to increase the time between visits within chiropractic. As a true chiropractor, will increase those times between your visits because they're doing so much with you in that one visit. And so it's compared to those who don't, that are doing this with their head, they're coming back with a symptom.
as soon as
Soon
they
as
left.
yeah. So
You heard it here, kids. There's someone listening who's never done chiropractic before at all. Like, what would typically your first ever chiropractor experience be like? Someone's listening to us and they're thinking, oh, maybe I'll give this a go. Like, what would that first visit be
So
like?
definitely your doctor should do an assessment, should do a lot of orthopedic tests and neurological tests to see where your spinal integrity is. Even an x-ray is even better to kind of see structurally what's going on, whether you've got a scoliosis or not, or you've got a deviation within your spine. That's important. Then they're going to move into the treatment, which is the adjustment. The treatment itself, will be interesting because people are going to hear a pop crack, right?
Does it hurt?
Well, it depends who's doing it. I'm kidding. No, but there's a lot of a chiropractic adjustment is very gentle and very safe, very safe. But what I will mention is that it is a stimulus to your body. So of course you're going to either jump or you're going to be like, "Whoa, that was different." But what's important about these adjustments is that you're getting a lot of stimulus to your frontal cortex, your brain. And so that stimulus is very impactful for other feedback loops. So when you're getting adjustment to any joint in your body, you're getting a lot of these mechanoreceptors and Golgi tendons to be stimulated. And that is what brings healing over time, is a stimulus to those muscle structures and to the brain, back to the body. So it creates this mind-body connection.
Right. As long as you continue the pathway and don't like just allow it to, as you said, go back to do this in the car and send everything back. Where it came before. Yeah, I remember my first. I remember my first
You
pop.
remember my
It's
first pop too. I will never forget.
it it's especially the neck, like because it's close to where you can hear it. I guess I don't know. I don't know enough about the inside of the body, but I guess the inside of my neck is closer to my ears, so it seemed louder. It seemed louder than
As a
the
matter of fact, the neck adjustment is the most impactful one. There's a lot of chiropractors who just specialize in upper cervical because the 10 cranial nerves sit right there in your spinal cord and your brainstem. So, a cervical neck adjustment is far more effective than others, actually.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of muscles going on around that
Vestibular
area as well, right?
system, everything.
It's for a general person out there. So say someone who's never been to a chiropractor and they're thinking, I never want to get to the stage where I need this sort of support. What's a common mistake that people make that often leads them down the road to needing the help of a wonderful, healthcare professional like yourself?
It really is how much they're moving. I think movement is medicine. I always tell people if you're moving, that's your natural chiropractic. If you're walking, you're stimulating your spinal cord and your spinal fluid with just walking, right? If you're squatting, if you're doing simple things. I mean, back then we were out there hunting for our prey. We were squatting to go to the bathroom. So a lot of what we're, you know,
Yeah, I
that's
guess
all
so.
mobility. It's all mobility. And so that's why now we're seeing a lot of stiffness because we have the easy lifestyle now. So we have the golden throne of the toilet now. And so
Yeah, and if you've got one of those Japanese ones, you don't even need to do the spinal twist to clean yourself up afterwards.
So it's those things. And so if it comes down to it, is movement. If you're not moving, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna get stiff, and you won't improve. And later on, you'll even get dementia and Alzheimer's because they're saying now that, I'm not saying it's the cause, but sedentary lifestyle can bring some deficiencies in your brain.
Yeah, like we said, the if the mind is off or if the body is off, it will compensate for a while and then suddenly it will get to a point where it will, throw the flag up. You mentioned walking. What about walking versus running? Like just as good, running higher impact, so it's worse. Like if I was choosing one of those simply for wellness purposes and not aerobic purposes, then would walking be better?
100%. Walking is one of the ways that you use and walking, what I mean by walking is an active walk, like a 30-minute active walk, using your arms, not using your phone, and not walking the dog. It's an active walk. So like 20 to 30 minutes, it can even be 15 minutes if you want. If that's the only time you have. Walk around your where you work, right? If you have a little break, walk around. It's a great way to help stimulate a lot of the joints within the body. I mean, you're using from your all the way to the big toe, all the way to your shoulder when you walk. And so running's great, but it's very compounding. So over time, it can cause some injury. A lot of people love running. I love running. Um, yeah, I love running. It really is a great way for me to kind of release all the stress I built up. But I do understand that running is very compounding to the knees and to the ankles and to the hips. And so over time, you will see some arthritic change if you're not aware of that, if you're not, on top of those things. So
Yeah, I really noticed the difference. I think I switched a lot of my running to a very bouncy treadmill. that absorbs a chunk of the impact, not all, but a chunk of the impact, and then it's been a while it's been nearly a year since I ran outside. It was the turkey trot
Oh
was the
yeah.
last time I ran
Army
out I ran outside,
time.
and that's coming up again now.
Look at
And there were two things that I took away from that. One, real hills are harder than treadmill hills, because you're actually moving your mass up and gaining a potential energy, so it's a little harder. And two, yeah, the impact from even a good kind of concrete surface. I really felt the impact on the knees very much more. And I think someone explained it to me once, like particularly if you're running quickly, that you're compounding your weight. It's not just like how much you weigh. If you weigh 150 pounds, it's not 150 pounds of pressure. It's that multiplied by all the force that you're applying to it as well, and the speed that your foot is striking the pavement. And the faster you run, the more that force is. It's I had a friend of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon who I'd always go and complain to him about running injuries, and he'd always say to me, "What I need you to do is just like find any other way to exercise." Yeah.
exactly.
But but on the flip side, Dr. Marquise, right, as he said to me, um, if your alternative to that is going to be not exercising at all, then fine, go back, like go to town on the knees. That's fine. Like I'd much rather you did that than sat in your chair all day. So it's definitely another person behind the movement thing. The movement thing. What about nutrition? If there's one food that you could say to somebody, like, if you can cut out this, you can strike one food off the options for all of America, and no Americans are able to have that food again, or that treat again, or that snack again. What's the one you would pick that you think would add the most?
Fried food.
Well, that's a lot of foods. They'll be protesting in the streets. Fried chicken's gone, and wings. Come on, man. The and
Yeah.
donuts.
Yeah, everything fried, because I mean, either they're frying it in canola oil or some type of saturated fat. It's just not going to be good for you. It's going to build a lot of free radicals in your body, and that causes inflammation. Another one is high fructose corn syrup. Yeah, I'm not perfect myself. Sometimes I do eat some of those things, but I'm mindful. It's about that 80-20%. If you're doing 80% of good eating, good healthy eating, you can do 20%, maybe 10 of some of the bad stuff. But if I could get rid of one, it's that soluble fat.
Okay, so Dr. Marquise, you've given us so much exciting information today, so much knowledge and insight. It's poured out of you. I'm sure the folks listening would love to hear a little bit more. So if folks want to find you online on the interwebs, where would be an amazing place for them to go find you?
Yes, they can find me on Instagram, Chiro with Marquise. That is my chiropractic page. I'm posting a lot of educational videos and adjustment videos. And so that's a great way to just get more knowledge and seek me out through there. And if anyone wants to book an appointment, I'm in Arlington, Virginia with the Chiro Group.
So that's all we've got time for. Dr. Marquise, thank you so much for coming in and sharing yourself and all your healing knowledge with us today. We'll see you soon for the next episode of Transform with Data. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for tuning in to Transformed with Data. If today's conversation gave you even one insight, one aha moment, or one new idea to take action on, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to level up. Until next time, keep asking the right questions, keep challenging the status quo, and keep transforming with data.